Alessandro di Mariano di Vanni Filippeppi, better known as Sandro Botticelli, was an Italian painter of the early Renaissance. He was born around 1445 and died on May 17, 1510. Today, he is remembered as one of the most famous artists in Italian history. Although his reputation declined after his death, interest in his work returned in the 19th century when the pre-Raphaelite movement helped bring attention back to his paintings. Since then, Botticelli has been celebrated for the elegant lines, graceful figures, and poetic beauty that characterize his art. Botticelli is especially famous for his mythological paintings, but he also created many religious works and portraits. Throughout his career, he painted numerous images of the Virgin Mary and Child, often using a circular format known as a tondo. His most famous masterpieces are The Birth of Venus and Primavera, both of which are housed in the Uffizi Gallery in Florence. These paintings remain among the most recognizable works of Renaissance art. Botticelli spent almost his entire life in Florence. He lived in the same neighborhood from childhood until his death and was buried in the church of Ognissanti, not far from his home. Apart from a short period working in Pisa and several months in Rome painting frescoes in the Sistine Chapel, he rarely left the city. Because he remained in Florence for most of his life, his artistic development was closely connected to the cultural and political environment of the city. The exact year of Botticelli's birth is uncertain, but records suggest that he was born sometime between 1444 and 1446. He was the youngest surviving son of Mariano Filippeppi, a tanner who later became a gold beater. This occupation likely introduced the family to local artists and craftsmen. According to the artist and writer Giorgio Vasari, Botticelli first trained as a goldsmith before turning to painting. The nickname Botticelli, meaning little barrel, came from his older brother Giovanni, who was apparently known by that nickname because of his physical appearance. The area where Botticelli grew up was home to workers and craftsmen, but wealthy families also lived nearby. One of these families was the powerful Rucellai family, who played an important role in Florence's economic and cultural life. Later, Botticelli's family rented property from them. Another important neighboring family was the Vespucci family, who became both supporters of the Medici and patrons of Botticelli's work. The famous explorer Amerigo Vespucci came from this family, and the Americas were eventually named after him. Around 1461 or 1462, Botticelli became an apprentice to Fra Filippo Lippi, one of the leading painters of Florence. Under Lippi's guidance, he learned how to create elegant figures, balanced compositions, and soft emotional expressions. Lippi's influence can be seen throughout Botticelli's early work. Although scholars have suggested that Botticelli may also have worked with artists such as the Pollaiuolo brothers or Andrea del Verrocchio, there is no firm evidence proving this. By the late 1460s, Botticelli had established his own workshop. In 1470, he received an important commission to paint the figure of fortitude for a series representing the 7 virtues. This project helped establish his reputation as an independent artist. Soon afterward, he took on his first apprentice, Filippino Lippi, the son of his former master. The two artists often worked closely together, and some paintings from this period are difficult to attribute with certainty because their styles were so similar. One of Botticelli's earliest important works is a large religious painting now housed in the Uffizi Gallery. Another major early achievement was his depiction of Saint Sebastian, completed in 1474. This painting demonstrates his growing confidence in representing the human body and his ability to combine elegance with realism. During this period, Botticelli's reputation continued to expand, and he even received commissions from outside Florence. A major turning point came with his Adoration of the Magi, painted around 1475. This work brought him widespread attention because it included portraits of important members of the Medici family. The painting was displayed in a prominent church and attracted many viewers. The variety of expressions, poses, and personalities shown in the work demonstrated Botticelli's skill as both a painter and an observer of human character. During the late 1470s and early 1480s, Botticelli became increasingly connected with the Medici family, who were the most powerful patrons of art in Florence. Although Lorenzo de' Medici himself commissioned relatively few works from him, other members of the family and their allies frequently sought his services. This relationship helped Botticelli gain prestige and access to influential cultural circles. In 1481, Pope Sixtus IV invited Botticelli to Rome to help decorate the newly completed Sistine Chapel. Alongside other leading artists, he painted a series of large frescoes illustrating scenes from the lives of Moses and Christ. These works remain among the earliest decorations of the chapel and represent one of the most important projects of Botticelli's career. His frescoes display his ability to organize large groups of figures while maintaining clarity and visual harmony. After returning to Florence, Botticelli entered the most successful phase of his career. During the 1480s, he painted many of his greatest works, including Primavera and The Birth of Venus. These paintings were revolutionary because they presented scenes from classical mythology on a scale rarely seen since ancient times. Their beauty, elegance, and symbolic complexity continue to inspire discussion among scholars today. Throughout the decade, Botticelli also produced numerous religious paintings, altarpieces, and Madonnas. His depictions of the Virgin Mary became particularly admired for their grace and emotional sensitivity. At the same time, he continued creating portraits and decorative works for wealthy Florentine families. His workshop was highly productive, and his reputation reached its peak. By the 1490s, however, artistic tastes in Florence began to change. New painters, such as Leonardo da Vinci, introduced different approaches that emphasized naturalism and scientific observation. Botticelli's style gradually became more personal and expressive. Rather than moving toward the emerging High Renaissance style, he often returned to artistic qualities that seemed more traditional and spiritual. The religious preacher Girolamo Savonarola also had a strong influence on Florence during this period. According to later accounts, Botticelli became one of Savonarola's followers. Although historians continue to debate the extent of this influence, some of Botticelli's later paintings show a greater focus on religious themes and emotional intensity. His only dated painting, The Mystic Nativity of 1501, reflects this spiritual atmosphere. In addition to painting, Botticelli developed a deep interest in the works of Dante Alighieri. He created illustrations for the Divine Comedy, producing an extraordinary series of drawings that remain among the most admired visual interpretations of Dante's masterpiece. Although the project was never fully completed, the surviving illustrations demonstrate Botticelli's imagination, intellectual curiosity, and remarkable draftsmanship. During his final years, Botticelli's artistic output declined. While he continued to receive some commissions, younger artists increasingly dominated the Florentine art scene. Nevertheless, he remained respected and was even consulted on important civic projects, including discussions about the placement of Michelangelo's famous statue of David. Botticelli died in Florence in 1510 at around the age of 65. After his death, his fame gradually faded as Renaissance art moved in new directions. For several centuries, he was largely overlooked. However, during the 19th century, scholars and artists rediscovered his work and recognized its unique beauty. Today, Botticelli is regarded as one of the greatest painters of the Renaissance. His graceful figures, poetic imagination, and timeless masterpieces continue to captivate audiences around the world.